Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
The person, it is very difficult to experience happiness. So material happiness is often glorified in poetry and in movies, and even in Vedas, Traigunya Vishaya Veda. And obviously there's lots of happiness in heavenly planets, and happiness where men and women, they come together and enjoy. But these forms of happiness, they're not spiritual. They're just different manifestations of lust, maybe subtle on the higher planets, and depending on the level of the consciousness of the person entering a relationship, then there may be more gross manifestations of lust. So in the material world, the relationship between men and women is not considered to be very pure or very auspicious. It's a manifestation of that all-pervading desire for sense gratification. It's a manifestation of lust. And as far as relationships are concerned, Srila Prabhupada talks about the relationship between mother and the child as being the purest form of a relationship, because it is based on the service. It is not based on what do I get out of it, but it is a sacrifice a mother makes for the benefit of the child. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada says this is the closest thing one can see in this world as far as love is concerned. So sometimes as a devotees we have a little bit different understanding or naive understanding. Harikash Maharaj, I remember once he was giving class here some years back, and he was giving this example how devotees think that they will get married and they will be sitting together and drinking hot milk and reading Bhagavatam together, and that was kind of, and the sun will be setting, and that was the kind of a pinnacle of a Grihastha ashram, which is a very nice idea. But obviously it takes a lot more than that. Firstly, somebody has to buy the milk, then somebody has to cook it. You have to. Well, it's a lot more complicated than that. So, purpose of marriage in a spiritual culture is somewhat not always fully understood. As Mataji mentioned, we come from different cultures, so often we superimpose our conditioning understanding of what married life is all about into Vaishnava marriage. So sort of the ideas we get from romantic novels and movies and what we see around in this world, then we impose it on Vaishnava relationships. So not necessarily externals may be the same, but the mood very, very different. So in the Vedic culture, the idea is that the Grihastha ashram comes second, is the second ashram. It comes after the Brahmachari ashram. The scriptures declare that a Brahmachari becomes an Acharya or he becomes Prajapati. So Acharya means somebody who does not enter the Grihastha ashram, but he preaches the Vedic knowledge. And Grihastha means somebody who applies this knowledge practically for the pleasure of the Lord as a part of his service for the Lord. So that's a basic difference. It is called Grihastha ashram. The purpose of Grihastha ashram in Vedic culture is to live a life of sacrifice, a different type of sacrifice. Brahmachari performs sacrifice for the pleasure of his guru by controlling his senses, and Grihastha engages his senses in the service of the Lord and his spiritual master. So in materialistic culture, then a slightly different approach. As a spiritual culture means at least one comes to the level of manamoya, or a religious level. Grihastha ashram means coming to a religious platform, a platform of duty. As a brahmachari, one is trained to act in the mood of naishkamya. Naishkamya means acting without a selfish personal desire. Very, very important aspect of training of brahmacharis to bring them to the platform of duty, that they don't do things simply to receive some prize or some recognition or any of those things, but because the instruction, injunction of the scripture and the guru, therefore they engage in those activities, and that is known as naishkamya. So the same mood of naishkamya has to be carried into a grihastha ashram. Therefore, like we said about the love of a mother, it is a duty, a certain loving duty is there, as she performs that loving duty. So a grihastha ashram means a certain aspect of duty is there, the duty to put aside a personal sense gratification or personal desire for the purpose of performing a certain prescribed and religious duties. However, in a materialistic culture, then it's not there. The lower levels of consciousness are involved. A relationship is a relationship, but the consciousness of people who are involved in the relationship is very different. A materialistic culture means the platform of anamaya, or sense gratification. So when people come to a certain age, then sexual urges come about, and then they strive to gratify their senses. And then for that they need a partner, so it becomes a relationship. Or sometimes when people are more developed and come from more sophisticated backgrounds, then they act on the platform of pranamaya, or extended sense gratification, where certain values and certain resources and economic and social criteria are also considered. So besides the sense gratification which is involved in a relationship between men and women, then you consider all other social considerations. So people often go and register the marriage, and it becomes a legally and morally binding obligation. So there's a big difference there. Annamaya and pranamaya platform means that we did things for ourselves. Religious or spiritual platform, we do things as a sacrifice for the Lord and for the purpose of self-realization. This is not so in the case of materialistic marriage or materialistic relationships. So although we often say that since as a devotees we enter a relationship for spiritual purposes, and material considerations are not important for us, generally speaking, a short time after we enter the marriage, we see that those material considerations we consider to be unimportant and basically unimportant. They become quite important and quite a big stumbling blocks in the relationships. So even though one enters Grihastha ashram for the sake of helping each other in self-realization, certain compatibility issues have to be there. And certain compatibility issues have to be considered, because one, generally speaking, can't maintain 100% Krishna consciousness all the time, and there will be times when one will be more Krishna conscious, and there will be times when one will be less Krishna conscious. And generally speaking, at the early stages of spiritual life, then there is lots of time where we are not so Krishna conscious, and sometimes we are Krishna conscious when we are in good association and properly engaged in devotional service. So therefore this consideration becomes quite essential to find a person that one is properly, has a proper compatibility with, so that there is no tension in the family, so that one can be peaceful, one can be properly situated as a grihasta, and that minimum energy and time is spent to deal with distraction, and that time and energy can be given to focus on spiritual development. So one of the other considerations which Mataji requested to speak about is the length or the period of association before one gets married. Of course, I'm not a lawmaker in ISKCON, so I don't really have an opinion of how long this period should take. There will be so many different opinions and considerations. But I can speak that traditionally, generally speaking, 7 days is also quite long. Generally speaking, one just gets married and is married. That's how it is. I don't know necessarily, because I haven't really had the experience, and I practically can't speak from practice, but from understanding and from observation that generally speaking one needs to be committed to whatever one does in life. And if one manages somehow to become committed to making spiritual progress, and one manages to become committed to Krishna consciousness before entering Grihastha ashram, then entering Grihastha ashram is just a different form of showing one's commitment to Krishna consciousness. So in Brahmacharya ashram, we study, we serve our Guru, we engage in different services under the guidance of spiritual master. And in Grihastha ashram, then we take what we have learned from our Gurus and apply it in a family environment. So really there's not so much change internally, and the mood is very much the same. There's some adjustment in the cultural adjustments. Brahmacharya ashram is very simple. It's more austere and masculine type of environment, while Grihastha ashram, then the women are there. So with that, so many other elements and complexities come to the ashram. So generally speaking, it is not really required to associate for a very, very long time. My personal belief is that people should get married young, but it should be and quickly. But it should be properly arranged under the proper guidance of experienced Vaishnavas, family members, and so on and so forth. And above all, they should have a proper understanding of what the Grihastha ashram is. If that understanding and that guidance, community support is there, then it can be very, very successful with minimum distraction and minimum troubles. But if that community support is not there, then no amount of association before the marriage, if the understanding and support is there, will not fix the problem. The real problem is that people often don't understand the implications of Grihastha ashram, and there is not enough support, community support, for them to maintain that relationship. So if those two elements are there, then 1 minute or 1 year, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, but from scripture perspective, then there is no such a thing as bachelor. There's the concept of snataka. There is no concept try before you buy, as we have in the West. Snataka means that somebody has decided to get married, and sometimes before he enters Grihastha ashram, then he goes and studies and learns things he didn't manage to study and learn in the particular ashram or particular school he was in. He wants to learn some specialized knowledge which was not available in the particular place where he studied, or he wants to engage in some services he perhaps did not have opportunity to engage in the ashram he was before. So that time is given to do that, and there's no specified time also, because as long depends what it is, what he tries to study, and it may take a different time, but it is not a time where he would associate freely with the opposite sex. There's no such a injunction or such a possibility really. Vedic culture, it does not matter if you are brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha or sannyasi. Is a culture of celibacy and sense control. So a free mixing is never allowed. Mixing between men and women without marriage is considered to be sinful. So generally speaking, we would not take that risk of committing a sin and coming closely to a person without marriage, knowing that nature of men and women is such that without proper supervision and without proper allowances, it may end up in sin. So generally speaking, that wouldn't be something we will try to do. We will in fact try to avoid. It's a dangerous place to be, both for a man and for a woman. So advantages and disadvantages. Advantages that if you get married when you're young and you don't associate so much, then you grow up together. It's always a good thing. People you grow up with, they will be your friends forever. There's no doubt about it. We maybe get elder as some of our senior Vaishnav here, but we still remember our childhood, our youth friends. So growing up together is a wonderful thing. One also is protected, because in youth that's where the senses and desires are the strongest. So entering the Grihastha ashram in a suitable age, as Srila Prabhupada talks about, is indeed very helpful. Disadvantages of associating and doing all those other things, then I think everybody knows more or less here that we get our hearts broken, we get attached, we do things we regret later on. So I don't think we need to talk much about that. The important thing to remember about the spiritual culture of marriage is that Vedic culture is a culture of commitment. So just as one becomes committed to one's spiritual practice, as one views marriage as a spiritual practice, then one can have a true commitment only. It's not possible to be committed to anything in the material world. It does not exist. Commitment in the material world does not really exist as such, because a spirit soul can only be committed to spirit. When we commit ourselves to something material, we become naturally, very quickly, disinterested with it. But the spirit, the soul, always has taste for spiritual activities. So the idea of Grihastha ashram is to spiritualize the relationship, to bring Krishna into the relationship, to bring that mode of sacrifice and service into the relationship. And by doing that, then one becomes stable and steady in that relationship. That's the importance to make a family as a religious institution, not just some moral institution or legal institution, but a religious institution. In the material world, in the relationships, we all look for stability, but neither economics nor sense gratification is able to provide any sort of stability, but religion is. There was religion yesterday, religion exists today, and religion will exist tomorrow. So bringing marriage to religious platform automatically gives you that feeling of stability and assurance that this thing will last, this thing will work, that you're not on your own. It's not just you and your wife or husband, but there is a higher power supporting that relationship. And that is a great strength for Grihastha devotees, to have that spiritual dimension to the relationship. Vivaha samskar is a samskar which in itself is meant for the purification of the bride. And just like the man is supposed to complete his brahmachari training and enter Grihastha ashram for the performance of sacrifice and self-realization as a continuation of the brahmachari ashram, for women Vivaha samskar is like the Upanayana Samskar, or the Brahminical initiation, then together with the husband they can engage in worship of the Lord. So this samskar should be celebrated very properly, it should be beautiful, it should be colorful, we should spend as much money as we can, and we should try to please as many people as we can. It shouldn't be kept small. We should try to make it very, very festive and make it very, very wonderful, and try to serve as many devotees as possible so that we receive the blessings and that we can be successful in Grihastha ashram. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fone. That it never happened. You just cannot cancel it. Yes, that's the idea. That there's so many elders there giving blessings, giving gifts. You cannot just, make it, cancel it. Or you cannot do it another time. It is something you only do once in your life. That's the whole idea. And I guess one important point really in entering married life in Krishna consciousness is really this firm commitment. And that requires faith in Krishna actually. That we see our spouse as Krishna's gift. This is what Krishna has given me for my purification. And I have to accept that gift. I cannot return it to Krishna or something. No, this is what he has given me, and we have to stick with it through all ups and downs and whatever might be coming. So that commitment has to be there. Whereas a non-devotee, he has that mood, well, while it's nice, while it's pleasing to me, I'm happy, and as soon as it's not so pleasing anymore, then I just flee the scene, I cancel, I get divorced. So it's a very, very different attitude, very different mindset. Even as non-devotee, people like to get a guarantee for sense gratification before they're willing to sign the contract. They want to try out, how nice will it be? That's why we want this long period of association, to try out. As Subhakshana Prabhu said, try before you buy. But spiritual culture, very different mood, very different. Because the sense gratification is not the goal in life. So there's no talk about, or how much fun it will really be. No, it's not a criteria. So obviously, we actually need preparation. This is one thing which I'm often lamenting about, that we have not really gotten there yet, that we prepare, we educate, we train our devotees how to enter married life, how to go through married life. For most of us, there's no training. We simply get married and that's it, and there's no preparation. And I mean, it's also not surprising because our ISKCON movement is only 50 years old. So, but it has to come, otherwise how will we really establish a society with healthy and strong families, right? So, now let us move on to some secrets of success in the Grihastha ashram. Actually, there are aspects which really make our family life into an ashram. There's a few aspects there. Without these aspects, it's not so much an ashram, but as much as the aspects are present there in our life, proportionally our family life is actually an ashram for self-realization. And I would like to invite now His Grace Pancharatna Prabhu to enlighten us on the first secret of success. For those who don't know Pancharatna Prabhu, he is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He actually joined in 1970 in Toronto. He was brahmachari for 10 years, and then he entered Grihastha life, and he's been doing so many wonderful services. He brought up 4 children with his good wife, Atita Gunamadaji, and since 1976 they're actually based in Mayapur, and sometimes they're spending some time in America. but their base is Mayapur, and they have performed so much wonderful service. Panchratna Prabhu was even involved in building the Long Building, if I'm correct, and Grihastha apartments. So he likes to start projects and then hand them over and let other devotees continue them. And his good wife, she's been active in the international school, and she's got the kids park there in the Grihastha park, the kids playground, and she's active there and is guiding a lot of devotees in their family life and. So we would like to invite His Grace Panchratna Prabhu to share with us how Srimad Bhagavatam and the holy name, how these two aspects, Shravanam, Kirtanam, they're actually the foundation. They should be the foundation to our family life if we want to make it an ashram. Please, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Today we were talking a little bit in lunchtime with friends about Dharma, and we were thinking, and I don't know if you will agree with me, that our real law book, our dharmic law book, is Srimad Bhagavatam. Some of us may be able to make heads or tails out of the Mano Samhita. I can't. I honestly just don't understand it. So I'm not going to even try to go there. But the Srimad Bhagavatam contains a roadmap for us. It contains not just a spiritual guide, but also a guide to how to live our lives in any ashram, and especially in the Grihastha ashram. In fact, most of the people in the Srimad Bhagavatam are Grihasthas. Of course, they often happen to be on heavenly planets and have mystic powers where they can make castles in the sky. But we may not be able to when their wives are needing some vacation. We would like to have that, wouldn't we? That would be nice. Yeah, we need a vacation. Well, all right, here's a castle in the sky. We'll go anywhere we want. No, we have to do it a little differently. But there's so much to be learned from the Srimad Bhagavatam in terms of how to live in the Grihastha ashram. And the first direction we get from the Srimad Bhagavatam is that any of our duties, any of our activities, they are meant for the pleasure of Krishna. So whatever we do, of course this is not only Bhagavatam, Gita also tells us in this way, we're doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. So this was already mentioned by Subhakshana Prabhu, that when we are looking to enter into the Grihastha ashram, we're entering in with this view, this goal to please Krishna. And as we are in this ashram, that's our central focus. And the holy name is the companion. When I was asked to talk about the holy name in the Bhagavatam in relationship to our Grihastha ashram, I came round to the foundation of our relationship with Srinam, which is the verse Mahaprabhu gives us in the Shikshashtakam. Chanadapi Sumechana Sarori Vasi Hishnana Amanina Mahanadena Kirtina Sadahava. And then I was very happy to see that a group of devotees, they're called the Grihastha Vision Team. How many here have heard of the Grihastha Vision Team? So, well, if you haven't, then check them out. Excuse me? 10 years they've been together. I mean, the group has been developing. So, those of us who were at the ILS might have visited their booth, and they have a little brochure, the Trinadapi model for Grihastha life. I thought, this is perfect. This is our spiritual culture. This is our secret of success in the Grihastha ashram. Today, I visited Godrudmi with a friend, and he was commenting, and we were talking about how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke about the Grihastha ashram. And actually, I'd heard this some days back when we were celebrating the, was it disappearance of Gaur Kishore? Or anyway, either the appearance or disappearance, I don't remember. But a devotee was quoting Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, and I was a little taken aback. Here's a Babaji, it's a Vairagi, and apparently Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur repeated this, and we also have heard it from Srila Prabhupada, that in the Grihastha ashram, it's a partnership of mutual respect, of mutual service. Some days back I was contemplating about, you know, here I am, I'm getting older, and I'm looking at the future, and I'm thinking, what a wonderful gift I have. I have the opportunity to serve a Vaishnava 24 hours a day. Grihastha ashram gives you the opportunity to be in constant service to another devotee. In this mood of service and of respect, and not, like the verse says, asking for or demanding respect, but offering that respect. The holy name then becomes the reservoir of happiness. I don't know that these tips are going to come out anywhere else, but the Grihastha Vision team put out some tips, some secrets to success. And although I suppose I should be quoting the Srimad Bhagavatam, but I'm not that scholarly, so I'm going to quote someone from outside of our Bhagavad culture, but I can't say that this person is, you know, irreligious. I don't know him, but I just know that he doesn't have a spiritual name, so I assume that he's not a member. What's his name? Joseph something. He wrote a book, and Frank Pittman's book. Okay. He said, marriage is not supposed to make you happy. It's supposed to make you married. And once you are safely and totally married, you have a structure of security and support from which you can find your own happiness. So, to me, the Bhagavatam and its direction for Grihastha ashram, coupled with what was just mentioned by Subhekshana, and Devaki Mataji was mentioning, commitment. That when we commit to this ashram, we commit to this partnership, till death do us part. Of course, maybe there's sannyas in some people's lives, but at least for me, it's like that. Then We have a framework, we have a platform, we have the safety, we have the security of that relationship, of commitment, two people committed to each other in sickness and in health. I mean, again, I know there's Vedic versions of all of this. I've heard them in the Jagyas, right? I mean, there's the same things, the sickness, health, all that's all there. But I just don't know the Sanskrit, so I'm using the Western version. But that commitment to be with each other gives you the safety and the security to pursue the full happiness that the holy name provides. And the happiness of the holy name provides you with the happiness you need to live in sometimes difficult situations. Being in a partnership with another individual, being two individuals with various differences in personalities, differences in their past and their karmas and all kinds of differences, will always, well, almost always, I guess there may be that rare occasion when everything is always perfect. Maybe that's happening. I don't think so. But for most of us, there will be difficulties. And if we are depending for our happiness, our inner happiness, on what we get from each other, that's actually got a word. It's called codependency. It means that you are not able to discover your inner happiness without the approval or the participation of someone else. Of course, we can be codependent with Sri Krishna. That's a different type of relationship. But when we're in this sphere, we have to have our relationship with the holy name and have the shelter of the holy name and the shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam to nurture that inner world, that inner life. So, I don't have a lot to say about Srimad Bhagavatam and the holy name and marriage. I know that I would be, I don't think without them, I can't imagine how, we've been, my wife and I have been married now, it will be 38 years. And we had a little more than 7 days. What was it? 2 weeks, I think? Yeah? Huh? And most of the 2 weeks you were in Australia. I think we had our actual quote-unquote association was 3 days or something like that. And Krishnadas, you told us just now that you were in Purnamasi. What was it? Few days. The compatibility, of course, is very important. I mean, that's why Subhakshana described how entering the Grihastha ashram should be done with the help of your seniors, those who can advise you, who can help you understand. No matter how well we think we can perceive the other person, often we get blinded by something else, some other sort of, filter that doesn't let us see things as they are. And our elders, our gurus, our family members. I also have to say that one of the strengths that I'm very grateful for is that somehow or other in my family, although I'm the only practicing devotee, and my children are devotees, but my brothers and sister and my parents and so on, somehow or other there's no divorce in our, my parents were married for 60-something years, and their parents were married for 60-something years, and both my brothers have been married for a long time. And so that's also helped me stay committed when I didn't feel like being committed. You know, there's a certain, I think, in a social. That's why I think our society. Some people may feel that some of the values in this Mayapur community about divorce are a little. Why make such a big deal out of it? But in one sense, and maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but having a social pressure to stay together, yes, there may be times when it just can't work, and that, you know, I'm not one who's going to say that there's no possibility, you know, of a divorce or a separation, because Prabhupada also gave that option, that a couple who couldn't live together can live apart and still be married. And we have quite a number of those nice devotees in our society who chose that path. So that's always an option. But you know, living in a society that values, that puts a value on it, it may help us in those times when things look, you know, like you're ready to just go the extra mile. And the Bhagavatam and our practice, of chanting and kirtan, will help us through those things. It's something that we can take shelter of when we don't have an answer. We're confused. We're bewildered. We don't know what to do when we're faced with some difficult circumstance. There is magic. There's magic in Bhagavatam and Srinam. It's not a mechanical thing that, okay, you know, we'll just do this and it will result in something. Krishna is there. Krishna wants, well, not only wants, but is working, doing everything, allowing, what do you say, man proposes, God disposes, but it's sanctioning. Everything's being sanctioned by him for our benefit. And especially sometimes to get us to take shelter of him in the Bhagavatam and the holy names when we're in difficulty. And then seeing their power. So those are the things that I thought I could share with you. Number one, from the holy name, that the same principle that gives us entrance into the chanting of the holy name, the principle of mutual respect, or actually humility and respect, the principle of tolerance, the principle of forgiveness, that these principles of humility, tolerance, forgiveness, respect, that we bring to our chanting of the holy names, these same principles, as we bring them to our grihastha life, they will give us the foundation that we can chant the holy names constantly in our grihastha ashram and find unlimited happiness. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your wonderful words. I guess also when Bhagavatam and the holy name are actually really the foundation of our marriage, that will give us that vision that each and every situation in our life we can connect with Krishna being behind it. That will enable us to actually see each and every situation in our life as Krishna trying to teach us something. That we understand there must be some reason why Krishna is putting me in this situation. So if Bhagavatam and the holy name are really the foundation of our family life, then only we can have that vision, that we always can see Krishna's hand, Krishna's arrangement in each and every situation. And that will give us the strength to work through difficulties with that strong commitment. But if Bhagavatam and the Holy Name are not the first priority in life, then we will have this mundane approach to marriage. And we will walk out as soon as it is not pleasing our senses anymore. Right? And also when we talk about foundation, we know from construction, the foundation is the most important thing in any construction, the foundation. And depending on how strong the foundation is, we proportionally can build higher. Right? So Bhagavatam, Holy Name, has to be the foundation to our family life. And then we have a strong footing, and our vision will be transcendental. And that will give us the strength to overcome difficulties. So one little thing I'd like to share from my times in Bangladesh. When I traveled in Bangladesh, I came to notice that actually no serious Hindu will live surrounded by Muslims. Most Hindus live in an area where other Hindus are living. And in the center of the Hindu areas is always some Hindu temples. And people still have that tradition, that culture, that in the morning time, in the evening time, people go and visit the mandir. They go to the Hindu temple. So from that I could understand this is how Prabhupada extracted that principle of morning and evening program. Right? That gives us that strength, that focus to our daily activities, morning, evening program. So, and now, of course, to make Bhagavatam and the Holy Name really the center and the foundation to our family life, it requires that we live, if possible, in walking distance to a temple. That's the beauty of this Mayapur community, that we are living in walking distance or bicycle ride distance from the temple. And it is just so natural to go to the morning program, to attend the Bhagavatam class. So making Bhagavatam and the Holy Name really the foundation to our family life, it means we actually have to mold our life in such a way that really it is the center of our family life. That has to be the first criteria. Can I read and hear Bhagavatam in the association of devotees regularly? Can I chant the Holy Name regularly in the association of devotees? But if we live 2 hours away from the nearest temple, well, then already Bhagavatam, Holy Name, very difficult to really make that the pivot point of our family life. We need the association of devotees. So now let us move on to a few more principles, secrets of success. Actually, one thing I want to share as well. In this 15-hour course we are usually having, we have this exercise. We collect on a flip chart all the different challenges, all the different traps, all the different difficulties which we might be facing in married life. And then after going through the secrets of success, we have a look whether these secrets of success offer the solution to those traps and challenges and difficulties. And it's a wonderful eye-opener to realize these simple secrets of success, they all offer the perfect solution to all the difficulties in married life. Yes. If we can just really apply them in our life, we will master all the challenges quite easily, actually. So, first secret of success was Bhagavatam and Holy Name being the center of our family life. So now we would like to invite His Holiness Bhakti-Rasamrita Maharaj to come and enlighten us on the next set of secrets of success, which is simply living devotee association, having a mentor and getting regular spiritual guidance as keys to success within married life. Okay, thank you, Matt.
ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादां सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण. Firstly, I'd like to apologize for coming late. I was held up somewhere. I wanted to attend the entire program, but nevertheless, I'm glad I was able to come at least. Devaki Mataji asked me to speak on 3 topics in connection with Grihastha life. One is simple living and not simply living. Simply living means something quite different. Simply living means just living without a purpose, without anything, just simply living, right? So I've modified the topic a little bit, and instead of speaking on simply living, I'll speak on simple living. Yes. And second is the association of devotees, and the third is on having a mentor. Right, so certain very valuable things for grihasthas. The Bhagavatam says that the very nature of household life is that complexity gets introduced from the very beginning. As Prabhupada used to say, man alone is fine, woman alone is fine, but man and woman come together, then there is complexity. Ato griha kshetra sutapta vittair janasya mohoyam aham mamiti. So, because the household needs things, there is a house required, there is some property, source of income, the kshetra required. Then there are children, and there is wealth. So all of these things accumulate and creates complexity in life. By the very nature of the ashram, it is like that. Even in traditional Vedic culture, there was an element of that, even in ordinary household life, except for those brahmanas who were really living very renounced lives. And we hear of such brahmanas as well, who would go out every day in the afternoon to beg, and then they would come back and share with the family members whatever they got by way of bhiksha. Such extremes, of course, are not practical in this day and age. But the principle of trying to live as simple as possible in the circumstances that we live in is very important. Not only is the Grihastha ashram basically a little complex, but the modern day culture has made it enormously so, further complex. Because the way the modern society is structured and the philosophy that drives the modern society is what we call consumerism, consumerist society, which just fuels the desire in its constituents to have more. And you have all these sophisticated techniques of advertising, marketing, and all the jargon that is there, which makes the person feel that I need something, even when he or she actually doesn't need it. So the modern day culture is just fueling this insatiable appetite for wanting more and more and more, and especially so in the urban areas. And thanks to television and all these other things, it's also percolating into the rural areas. I do visit villages, interior villages, as a part of my service. I spend a certain amount of time, a small amount of time. And I see that now even in interior villages there is television connectivity. And we have the government of the day promoting computerization in the interior villages. So poor things there in the village, they've never seen anything beyond the village, but now they're exposed to Bollywood, and they see all these glamorous looking people wearing all kinds of clothes, and they see in all sides of contraptions, they see the glitter and glamour of the city, the multi-storied buildings, and they get bewildered. And they want to leave their simple life and come to the city, and they think they'll be happy over there. But when they come to the city, they realize what life is. They have to live in slums, ghettos, and they have a miserable life. They're exploited. So the modern day culture is something that is just creating havoc in the minds and hearts of people. So the Srimad Bhagavatam and our entire philosophy says this fire has to be doused. Just make it simple, simple, simple. Reduce your so-called necessities. In one purport in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada uses the curious but very telling phrase, unnecessary necessities. In other words, we accumulate these things which we think are necessary, but they're actually not necessary. So they're unnecessary, quote-unquote, necessities. They simply add to the complexity and burden of our life. So when it comes to simple living and high thinking, yes, we have examples even in ISKCON of farm projects where devotees try to live really simply. And Srila Prabhupada did want many of our devotees and the society at large to gravitate slowly towards such a kind of life, because this kind of living is predominated by the mode of goodness. And simplicity is one of the elements of the mode of goodness. And when there is simplicity in the mode of goodness, the mind becomes calm, it becomes peaceful, and therefore it is a conducive situation in which to hear and chant about Krishna, which is our fundamental task. But of course, the reality of life is that not everybody can live like that. Even amongst our devotees in this movement, what to speak of those outside? By living in the outside world, one becomes so habituated to these things, to all the so-called luxuries and comforts of life, that we just cannot adjust to a simple life. It's very hard. During the ILS, I was attending one seminar, and there was a beautiful presentation about a farm project in Siberia. And one of the things they mentioned there was, they were discussing the topic of why is it so hard for devotees to shift to such a simple place, to come to a farm and live a happy life and then just chant Hare Krishna. The economics is simple, sociology is simple, you can chant Hare Krishna much easier. And the answer was very revealing, very interesting. They said, generally people don't want to shift to such a place because there's no passion there. And we're so used to passion, we take shelter of passion, we take shelter of all the things the glitter and glamour of the city offers. We go to the supermarket, the mall, the shopping malls, and feel a kind of a shelter. So nice. I want to be here. So that is the effect of the mode of passion. It just gives us an illusory feeling of shelter. And we want to see all the cars and the TV and everything like that. So we become addicted to that. And we can't leave it. And when we come to the countryside, which is in the mode of goodness, we just can't tolerate the peace. We can't tolerate the goodness. We cannot tolerate the simplicity. And we rush back to the city. I'm also associated with a farm project. We're trying to make a self-sufficient farm project in South India. And we see that devotees, when they come there, even devotees, they cannot stay for more than a day or two. It all looks very nice and romantic and everything when you come and you encounter the nice forest and the peace and the calm and everything. But after some time, they get agitated by the peace. They get agitated by the goodness because we're just not used to it. But gradually, if we develop the taste for simple living, then, you know, we will get accustomed to it. Then we will start actually liking it. And those devotees who stay there, they love it and they addicted to that. And now they cannot bear the thought of being in the city. Even for a day, they go there only when it's really necessary to go, otherwise they don't. But coming back to the point I was making earlier, yes, it is not practical to expect that everybody in the city is going to, even in our movement, that they will all come and live in a farm project. We don't have so many farm projects in the first place. We haven't developed our farm economies. We haven't developed the sociology that goes with it. So it's not possible to expect everybody to come. What then? What is the next option? The option is that wherever we are, let us try to simplify our existence. How does one do that? By minimizing or at least reducing the kind of things that we like to purchase and buy and keep in our house and use. For example, the next time we want to buy a new washing machine or a new whatever, new appliance or something else, it's good to reflect, do I need this? And if the answer is a yes, perhaps it's time to ask the next question, do I really need this? And if the answer is still a yes, then perhaps the next question, do I really need this? And I think when we sufficiently reflect on this and look back and think about all that we've heard in all the Bhagavatam classes and everything, we might think, actually, I don't really think I need this. I think I can get by. I'm not going to die if I don't have this, the latest washing machine or the latest refrigerator or the latest, mobile phone with all sorts of facilities and so on. It's possible to live happily. I mean, nobody died. None of our ancestors have died for want of a mobile phone. But people are dying now because of mobile phones. Do you know, for example, that India has the highest rates of deaths due to selfies? People get very adventurous with selfies in trains coming down the rail track, and he wants a real, I don't know what you call it, cool picture with him coming in. And then he does a mistime, and then he's knocked down by the train, he dies. People taking selfies on the edge of a cliff and they fall down and die. These are true stories that come out in the newspapers. So somehow or the other, this razzle-dazzle, this glitter, glamour of the consumerist society is so overpowering that it affects us as devotees as well. And nowadays, if you want to be in the movement, you have to survive, you have to preach, you need that computer, you need that phone, you need so many other things. So it's very difficult. We have, with the principle of Yukta Vairagya that we have to use for preaching, it's a sublime principle. At the same time, it's also a little dangerous because we tend to get carried away with it many times. So as far as possible, we can reduce the things we need. And in environmental studies, you have these three ideas, reduce, reuse, recycle. And I think that things can be applied here. When I grew up as a child, I remember at our home, we would recycle things. We'd have those brass vessels, and something happened, crack. We'd go to the blacksmith or the ironmonger, and he would do something with the fire, and the vessel was back. And we used to use that. And whatever textbooks our older siblings used to use, those textbooks would be used by us. In fact, sometimes even the clothes and some of the toys and some of these things would be passed on. But the modern day culture is a waste-oriented culture. Do you know that just like you have GDP and all of these economic indices, one of the indexes of economic development is the waste disposal index, how much you wasted. So the modern culture, because it's consumption-oriented, is also waste-oriented. You just take something, use a little bit of it and then throw away. Many times people say, you know, we should be paper-free and better to just use the computer because you don't use paper. And then the paper you need to, you know, destroy a tree and then you make paper from that. But I really wonder, even when we use laptops and so on and mobile phones, the kind of environmental damage that happens to make that, and when you dispose that appliance or that instrument, what happens to that after we have disposed it is a whole subject in itself. The kind of environmental damage that happens as a result of these things is unthinkable. So perhaps at least the trees can be replanted. But what do you do with all this other electronic gadgets that are accumulated for years and years, millions and millions of these pieces? They go to the so-called developing world and they pollute that, and the developing countries send it off to all these other countries so they can't see it. So we have to also simplify our life by trying to reduce what we need, what we think we need. We have to recycle what we have, bring back the old traditional way of doing things, reuse them, and in this way we'll be able to substantially simplify our life, and we will see that life becomes so much more happier. Today it's a philosophy of trying to increase what you have, and a large element of this is to show the world what I have. There used to be a famous advertisement for a television which says, "Neighbors envy, owner's pride." You know, so basically people in the world outside try to accumulate more and more because it fuels envy in the minds of others. And therefore Srila Prabhupada told that humorous story about the lady of the house who had 100 degrees fever and the maidservant had 104, and the lady of the house was furious that how can the maidservant have something more than me? And Prabhupada explained that it's basically the fever of material acquisitiveness that is raging all over the world. So as devotees, we should try to avoid succumbing to this fever, but trying to live simply, and our household life will become so much more happier and more peaceful. There's a lot more to say on this topic, but we have to move on to the next part of it, which is the association of devotees. Of course, that's a fundamental principle of devotional life, not just of household life. So definitely it also applies very importantly for household life. Yes, we've all heard the saying that we must make our home a temple. Absolutely necessary. But sometimes what happens is that devotees make their home a temple, yes, but they forget to make the temple their home. It's also important to come to the temple. Once we've made our home a temple, how did we get the knowledge, the understanding, the enthusiasm to make our home a temple? Because we associated with devotees previously. Therefore we understood the importance of doing this and we did it. And now that we've made our home a temple, there is one thing very important that we don't usually get sitting at home, and that is the association of devotees. The association of devotees is the root for all good things, especially for perfection of Krishna consciousness. We hear about Krishna, we come to the temple, we see the deities, and there's so many other things we can do. We celebrate festivals with the devotees. So in as much as it is important for us to make our home a temple, it is also important for us to make the temple our home, which means that we come regularly to the temple and take the association of devotees. Of course, the association of devotees is not restricted only to the temple. We can also have other gatherings where devotees get together, maybe not in the temple but elsewhere, and we hear and chant about Krishna and so on. So it's a very, very important principle for us to associate with devotees. And lastly, the idea of having a mentor. Yes, because we all need some guidance. Nobody is independent in this world. We all are dependent on something or someone. And by the nature of this world, which is so bewildering, we will all find ourselves being perplexed at so many turns in our life, and all the more in household life where things are indeed a little more complicated. So to have senior devotees who may guide us is very important. The way that initiation and so on is structured within ISKCON, we may have one Diksha Guru who may have a very large number of disciples. And it may not be possible, and certainly is not possible, for that Diksha Guru to pay personal attention to every single disciple. It's just not possible. So therefore, to have guides who are accessible to us, who may not be our Diksha Gurus, they may be Shiksha Gurus, they may be mentors, they may be guides, they may be at varying levels of spiritual advancement. Those things are also necessary. That is also how the traditional system of education happened, where the Guru would teach the senior students, the seniors would teach the juniors, and so on, and everybody helped everybody else, and it was a nice family kind of atmosphere. So also, this kind of an atmosphere where in the community of devotees there is a bonding, where we help each other, we guide each other, and specifically we also take guidance from the senior devotees. That is very, very helpful for the progress in Krishna consciousness and in understanding how to live in Grihastha life and be Krishna conscious. All these three topics are very big topics, but I'm looking forward to hearing from our later speakers, and I do not want to hog all the time, so I will stop here. And thank you very much for Devaki Mataji for inviting me here, and thank you very much all of you for your kind attention. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj, for giving us our valuable time. Just a little story came to my mind. Probably many of us here know Atu Krishna Prabhu. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this story, but it just fits perfectly to the topic of simple living. His wife is from Bangladesh. I know him we joined actually around the same time in Australia. So when he got married to his wife from Bangladesh, he was saying to me, "I'm so lucky my wife is from Bangladesh. She doesn't even know what an iron is. I don't have to buy her an iron. She doesn't even know what it is." And then 2 years later, when I met him in Mayapur, he was saying to me, "Guess what? My wife saw at the neighbors a fridge. So now she wants a fridge. She saw it there. Before she didn't know what a fridge is, but now she wants a fridge. Now I have to buy a fridge." So I thought this was very humorous, what it means to really try and keep one's life very simple and be satisfied with the bare necessities. And another little situation comes to my mind. Some 10, 12 years ago in my flat here in the Gaushala, the water pump broke down. That was after this huge flood we had, where Prabhupada's Bhajan Kutir was washed away. So our water pump didn't work for 2 weeks. And it was during the GBC meetings. I was cooking for my Guru Maharaj at that time. And we had to carry every single drop of water in the bucket upstairs for 2 weeks. Every single drop for, taking bath, for washing the vegetables, and, for 2 weeks. And after those 2 weeks, I thought, gee, maybe no need for water pump. Actually, we got so used to it, we got so much into a certain system of, already in the evenings getting the water so we could take bath in the morning, and we got in such a regulated system, we didn't even miss the pump anymore. And I was thinking, yeah, I mean, there's millions of people in the world who live like this, who don't have running water. And as we know, the gopis were always going and carrying the water and so on. So I started thinking, well, maybe no need for a water pump actually. But of course, we got a water pump. But in any case, just as a little example that one can actually get so used to simple situations. It's just the mind. And then once we adjust, we have to adjust, we are perfectly happy without it. Yes, it really works that way. And in regards to mentorship, it is really like that we actually could save ourselves from making so many mistakes in our life if we would just take guidance. That somehow, unfortunately, we often think we can work it out all ourselves, and we repeat the same mistakes which other devotees have made. We repeat the same things. And it would just be, our life would just be so much more smooth if we would just accept guidance from somebody who's got more experience facing a certain challenge which we are facing. Yes. Okay, so let us move on to our next topic. So these were some of the main secrets of success. Bhagavatam and Holy Name being the foundation, then simple living, not simply living, but simple living, keeping our life simple, and devotee association, and taking guidance, having mentorship. We can do that exercise at home. You make a list of all the challenges and traps and difficulties in married life, and you will realize that these secrets of success, they offer the solution. It is quite eye-opening. You can do it for yourself at home. So now let us move on. Our next speaker is His Holiness Chandramani Swami Maharaj, and he will enlighten us on the purifying duty of the Grihastha ashram, meaning giving in charity, and the importance of receiving guests, Vaishnava hospitality. Maharaj, kindly come up on the stage and share something on this.
Timidandasya Kyanajana Savakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyatya Satarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gauda Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Before I begin my topic, I was just thinking after I heard Maharaj's talk about simple living, I was just going through my mind all the stuff I want to throw out. I was really inspired by that. I felt really thinking, now I have a chance to get rid of a lot of stuff I really don't need. Really. Thank you, Maharaj. It was wonderful. And plus whatever else you said in relationship to the association. Giving in charity, and also the importance of receiving and welcoming guests. Now there's a particular story Srila Prabhupada mentions where Parvati, she speaks to Lord Shiva, And she says, Prabhu, you know, you have so many followers, you're worshipped by so many great souls, and I have a big service, I have to maintain this material energy. We don't have a house. We should get a house. So he wanted to please his wife. And so she said, you know, we're living under a tree, so we need a house. You know, such important service you had, honored by so many. So he agreed, and they had a house built. And then they had what is called the housewarming ceremony. So that ceremony went on, and he performed the yagyas, and so many guests came, great sadhus, saints, others came, so many guests. So at the end, it was time to remunerate the honored guests, the sadhus, the sages, with some gifts, because that is culture, that if esteemed gifts, sadhus, personalities come to your home and bless your home, then it is your responsibility to offer some gift in return. This is etiquette, this is culture, this is respect. But when it was time, Lord Shiva realized he had nothing to give. So then he thought, oh, I have a house. So he gave the house. And then he was back underneath the tree again. So this kind of illustrates, you know, charity in its utmost. Perhaps we're not on that level. Vasudeva Datta Thakur was also known as a very charitable and magnanimous person. His heart was so soft, his mind was so full of compassion for all living entities, that when he ever saw anyone in need in any way, being a householder, and he also had a family, he would see what he had and what he could offer to that person to make them better in their situation, to give them something. He always wanted to uplift and make others, what we say, happy, satisfied their needs. And so he would give everything he had, and he could not even maintain himself. He also had some wealth. So Lord Chaitanya was very concerned that Vasudeva Datta Thakur is not taking proper care of his own household, and he's simply taking care of others in need. So he put Shivananda Sain as a manager for the household accounts of Vasudeva Datta Thakur. Another example of a magnanimous householder. Culture of respect, the culture of honor. As Maharaj quoted that verse, Aho griha kshetra satapa vitaya janasamo hamameti. That in this ashram that we live in, Grihastha ashram, it is very much easy to become ahamameti. This is mine and this is I. And these two principles are the actual foundation of material consciousness. Everything centers around that. This is me, my body, my gender, my family, mine, or I, my possessions, my husband, my wife, my children, my land, my body. This is the conception of material life in all aspects. So spiritual life, as we understand, means nirmama, nothing is mine. Everything belongs to Krishna. Everything is Krishna's energy. And Krishna has given me something according to my needs or my quota in order for me to live. But not only to live, but to use that as a service to others. So Grihastha life, and in any ashram, we can't just not only say Grihastha life, but any ashram, the mood is seva. seva to Krishna, seva to the spiritual master, seva to the Vaishnavas, seva to persons in general, seva to all living entities. But especially in Grihastha life, the tendency to fall into that mindset of I and mine is easily reinforced by the lifestyle of having so many of these other arrangements that somewhat appears to be needed in our life. Many of it is, up to a certain point. But how to use that in such a way that we don't become attached to it, and at the same time it elevates our consciousness in devotion to Krishna. So therefore the principle of charity to others is done in the mood of becoming detached from what we have, but at the same time pleasing those persons we come in contact, as we know, as guests or persons who come to our home. I'll give you an example. We have the story of Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya was traveling with some of his brahmacharis. He was going from place to place and preaching. He came into one area, and he remembered that he had two householder devotees living in this. One was very, very wealthy and rich, and one was practically unable to maintain himself day to day. He was always begging just to maintain his family, just to get enough food to eat. So he said to his brahmacharis he wanted to stay at the home of the rich person. And he said, I am coming to his house tonight. You please go and inform him that his Guru Maharaj will be coming. Please make the arrangements. So these two brahmacharis went, and they came to this home of this very rich person. And upon opening the door and seeing these two brahmacharis, he was thinking, oh my God, brothers have come. Welcome. So he came in, they came in, and he said, why have you come? Oh, Guru Maharaj is here. He has sent us. He wants to tell you that he wants to stay at your home tonight, so please make all arrangements. The devotee, this rich person, immediately became overwhelmed with joy and happiness and became so excited. He called his assistants, his servants, family members, announced the news, and immediately, in a very enthusiastic way, started to dictate all the things that were necessary for that arrangement. But what happened was, he completely neglected the two brahmacharis. He didn't even welcome, he just welcomed them, and when he heard why they came, that's all he had to do with them. He didn't even offer them a place to sit. And in other words, he didn't give them the proper respect as a guest. Later on, they left, and they came back to Ramanujacharya. And Ramanujacharya said to them, well, what did he say? Oh, he was so excited, Guru Maharaj. When he heard you were coming, he immediately was making all kinds of arrangements. No, how did he treat you? Well, his enthusiasm for you, hearing about your coming, he didn't really say anything to us other than the initial greeting. Ramanujacharya said, I'm not going. Because he didn't treat you properly, honor you properly, or give you the proper respect, I'm not going. And he went out to the home of this poor personality, I can't remember his name, and he sent his brahmacharis also there, but he wasn't even home. His wife was home. He was out begging, and they were so poor that the wife could not even come out to greet the brahmacharis because she didn't even have enough clothes. But when she heard that their Guru Maharaj was there, she was coming. She was mortified, thinking, oh my God, we don't have nothing. Guru Maharaj is coming. We have to do whatever's necessary to satisfy. Then she remembered, oh, there's this one merchant. She's going to this per merchant every once in a while, and whenever little money her husband begs, she comes and she buys a few things. But this grocer, this merchant, was attracted to her in a physical way, and he was always trying to lure her in. But she was very chaste and very faithful and very what we say, devotional to her husband and to Krishna. And so she would completely ignore this person's advances. But now she was thinking, I have to do something. My spiritual master is coming. If he comes and we're not able to welcome him nicely, what will happen to us? And so she thought, oh, well, I'll go to this grocer and I'll satisfy whatever needs he wants, and then I'll ask him for groceries. She was willing to sacrifice her chastity in order to satisfy her spiritual master. So she went and she explained the situation. He became overwhelmed. He became so, oh, finally she's now coming to her senses, according to his understanding. And he said, take whatever you want. You can have as much as you want. And she said, okay, and then I will also come back and satisfy your desires. So he gave her everything. She went home and she prepared this wonderful meal. In the meantime, her husband came home and said, where did you get all this? Well, Guru Maharaj is coming tonight. And then she felt really, really bad. But I must say, you know, that grocer was always after me in the wrong way. Well, I've submitted myself to him in order to get these groceries, in order to please our spiritual master. So her husband said, you did the right thing. And so she prepared a wonderful meal. Ramanujacharya came. He was amazed. How did she get all this? He didn't say anything. She served so nicely, and her husband was there, and she has assisted. And he felt so pleased, so happy, and he felt so blessed. And then, at one point, she felt very guilty on how she was able to arrange for her to get all these ingredients in order to make this nice arrangement for her spiritual master. And Ramanujacharya understood. So he took prasadam and he said, here, you take these remnants of mine and you give them to the grocer when you go to see him. So she dutifully did. That night she came. Oh, she's coming. She's coming. And he was getting very excited. And then she said, thank you very much for giving those groceries. My spiritual master was served so nicely because of you. But he wants to offer you something, so here's some of the remnants from the meal. So as soon as he took those remnants, all of a sudden, his heart became different. He started to shed tears. His mind became pacified. And he looked at her as a saintly woman. He said, you are a great saint. You are so wonderful. You were willing to do this, what we say, irreligious act, just to please your spiritual master. You are my mother. Please go home and be satisfied. And anytime you come here, I'll give you whatever you need. So this is a beautiful story of devotion to the spiritual master and how one is willing to sacrifice anything to please the Lord, to please the guest. So this is, of course, a unique example. But the mood is selfless surrender. Therefore, in Grihastha life, we have a great opportunity.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare